In this video, we are going to move from this raw data to this dynamic Excel chart, all using option buttons. We are drawing inspiration from this Yahoo Finance chart here for Amazon stock history numbers. So you're able to filter for a given date range here depending on what each of these represent, as well as this US inflation rate chart here. So you can pick a given period here and you can see it's the same flow. If we are meeting for the first time, my name is William, and in this channel we talk everything Excel, Power BI, and charts and visualizations. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing by clicking the subscribe button below for these and more videos. Now on this data set that you see here on the screen, we are looking at 210 data points from 31st of January 2005, and it's running all the way to 30th of April 2022, and these are inflation rates for one of the countries around the world. The idea is, like we have seen in the example I've illustrated from Y charts and stock prices, is that we need to be able to pick a given filter period here, and then once we select that, we can pick the corresponding data set here and show it on a chart. So that's the whole essence of this lesson, and we are starting right now. So as a start, let's first get the date ranges for each of these periods here. So we need to capture what is the earliest date and what is the most recent date, what we are calling the latest date from the data set. So the latest date will be the same for all these periods. So I can select that and I say equals max for maximum. Then I can pick from A2 downwards. I hold Ctrl Shift arrow down. Then I can press F4 to be able to lock that range. Then once I close the bracket, I can press Ctrl Enter. Then it will give me this maximum dates. As you can see, it's the same all through. Now for the earliest date, this will be different depending on how many periods you are shifting backwards. And in Excel, you have a couple of functions that you can leverage on. In this example, we are going to look at EDATE as well as EOMONTH date. So for the 3M, which just basically means 3 months backwards from this latest date, we can say equals EDATE. Then the start date will be the date, the maximum date, comma, then how many months do you want to stay in the current month? Do you want to go to the future or retract backwards? So we are putting -3 here to be able to return the date that is 3 months earlier. So if I look at this, I get a serial number, which is basically a representation of the date. You can go to the home tab and then change this to a short date. So as you can see, this gives me 30th of January up to 30th of April, and because 30th of April has data, then we end up with 4 months. We need to account for that, and therefore we shall update this our EDATE formula, and instead of just picking the latest date as is, we are going to say +1, which would mean from 30th of April make it 1st of May, then go backwards 3 months, then it will give me 1st of February. And because my month dates in column A are showing the end of the month always, then we can wrap this formula within an EOMONTH. So we'll say EOMONTH. Then at the end, I just put a comma and I say 0 because I want to retain the current date end month. So you see it gives me 28th of February, and that gives me the date that I'm looking for. So for the rest of these, it will be the same. So I'll just copy this date that that formula that we've just created. I will paste it in these 6M and then these others. I'm skipping the YTD and all time because the logic will be slightly different, but for the rest, because we are shifting the dates backwards a couple of months, then it will be the same formula. And the only thing that we need to change is this number of months that we are shifting within the EDATE formula. So if it is 6 months, we just put 6 there. Okay. Then for 1 year, it will be 12 months backwards. So I'll edit this and make this 12. We do the same for 3 years. This will be 36 because it's 3 years times 12 months. Then 5 years is 60 months, right? So we do that. And then for 10 years, it will be 120. So I just type 120 there. Then for the YTD, the date will be the beginning of the current year. So if the maximum year is in 2021, it should be starting from 1st of January 2021. But in this case, it should be 1st of January 2022. And therefore, we are going to use the date functions. For the year, we are going to capture the year coming from the latest date. So I use that year function there. For the month, we are just going to restrain it to month number 1 and then day 1 as well. So that will give me the year to date range. As you can see, is 1st of January for that year. For the all-time minimum date, this one will just be the minimum, the earliest date in column A. And therefore, I can just drag this formula, the maximum, because I've properly logged it will give me the correct range. And I just check this one, change this one to minimum. Okay. Then that will mean that 1st of January 2005. Now that we have identified the earliest and the most recent date for this, we need to create the option buttons as we mentioned at the beginning. For you to create the option buttons, you need the developer tab. If it's not available, then you can go to any one of these menus, right click anywhere on the ribbon, choose customize ribbon. You will get this dialog box that gives you a lot of things, and on this tab here on the right side, the main tabs, yours will be unchecked. If it wasn't checked, you just put a check mark there and press OK. Then you will get the developer tab here. So if I go to the developer tab now, I can be able to insert this, the option button, the one with a small dot there. Then I want to draw a small or reasonable size there. As you can see, if I just make it wider, this gives me option button 1. So for this one, we are going to right click and choose to edit text because I want it to read 3M. Then I can delete what is inside that button. Next, we need to create an option button for each of these period filters. So this one will be 3M. I can right click, I say copy, and then Control V to paste. Then I make the change that I need to make here. So I'll just right click, choose edit text, change from 3 to 6, and therefore that will be 6M. Alternatively, if it's selected like this, you can just press Control D. That will duplicate it. So I need like 5 more. So I'll duplicate this again, Control D, 4, 5. So the second one down here, I can make an edit here. Then this one will be YTD. So I'll use the same process to make the same changes to these other option buttons. So I'll speed up this process at this juncture. So once you have updated the text for each of these option buttons, you can arrange them at the top here. So I'll just select this last one and move it somewhere towards the right like that. Then when it's still selected, I will press Ctrl A to select all these objects. Then I'll go to shape format menu up here. Then I want to align them to the top. And then also under alignment, we can distribute them horizontally like that. So they will be arranged in that sequence as such. Now, if I make a selection here, nothing happens. And it's because we haven't told Excel what happens if I make the selection. Now, all these option buttons are grouped together and therefore it's one choice at a time. So if I make a selection here, I can't make a selection for the other. I need to be just one selection at a time. So for me to get the information to use it to make the interactive chart, then I need to right click any one of these option buttons and I choose format control. Then once I choose the format control, this cell link is what I need to harvest. So I'll put it somewhere here in E12 and then I press OK. So as you can see, it's number 4 because I've selected the 4th item. If I select the first one, you see it's giving number 1, 2, and so forth. Remember, these option buttons are serialized. The first one that you inserted takes number 1 and subsequently for the others, and therefore you have to be careful even as you type the text inside here so that they follow the same order as you'd want it to be. So if this is the option button selection, how do we use that number here now? So if that's the selection, I need to get what is the period selected. So I want from these filters here, what is the period? So in this case, I need the third item here. There are many ways you can go about this. You can use the choose function. You can use the switch function. You can use any other function, but in this case, let's use index function. Index requires your output array. This is where my answers will be coming from. Then comma, I want the third item, and that third item is controlled by what is coming from the option button. So if I enter, then you see it's YTD. That's the text. If I change this to 3M, as such, it keeps changing. So with that, we also need to get the earliest date and then the latest date for that selected period. Now this one has many other functions that you can use. You can use the index function as well here. It will still work the same way. Index this pattern, return the second item. In this case, let me use XLOOKUP. If you're using Office 2021 or 365, this function will be available. I'm looking up for that 6M in this selection here, comma, and I want to return the values from this column. So I just need those three items, and therefore you get this serial number, which is the date. I will use the format painter here to get the formatting for this. So that's the 31st of November last year, 2021. Then the latest date, again, you can use XLOOKUP, but let me use VLOOKUP for the sake of variation. So I'll be VLOOKUPing for that, and then I'm looking for it in this range. I'm not locking because I don't plan to autofill this one. Then I am returning the third column, and this is an exact match, so I put false, and again, when you look at that, you get the same date. Now, with the dates identified, we need to get a subset of data that we'll be using for plotting the chart. So here we need to say maybe chart preparation data. We need the date, which is the period, and then the inflation rate. So for the period column, we are picking dates from column A, but how many rows do we need? Okay, so if it is 6 months data, then I want to pick from that top row all the way to the 6th item, 30th of November 2021. So I'll say equals offset, and offset takes a starting point, more like we have the Google Maps and we are starting from a place and we need to go to a destination. So the reference is our starting point. In this case, I want to start from A1. You can start elsewhere like A2. Then the number of rows is how many rows do you want to move from that A1. Now for me to start from 30th of April, then I need to skip one row, and therefore I will put 1. I'm staying within the same column, so I'll put 0 for the number of columns. But the height is how many items or how many dates fall within this period. Now initially we'll put a 6 like that. Then comma, the width will be still one column, it's optional. When I close the bracket, you will see this formula gives us the dates as serial numbers. If you're using an earlier version than Office 2021, so that if you have Office 2019 or below, it may not populate this what we call the spilled range, and therefore you can wrap this within a count function, then close the bracket at the end. It will give you how many items are stored in that formula. Now let me format these ones to be proper dates like that. So what is the inflation rate for each of these? Here you can use a VLOOKUP or XLOOKUP, or still use the same formula here. So I'll just copy the formula here. Then I say equals Control V. Then this time round I will not offset from A1, I will start from B1. So I just make that change. The rest of the parameters will remain. As you can see, we get 6.47 all the way to 5.8. Now this number 6, which we've just had coded here, will be different as we choose different options here. So how do we make it dynamic? So I will introduce the match function here so that I can match the selected earliest period, which is being driven by the option buttons. Then I say comma, what is our lookup array? I'm matching that earliest date within A2 all the way to the bottom, Control Shift arrow down. I need that range. Then I will put a comma and return this one. You can make the exact match if the earliest date returned up there is the same, but as you can see, this is 1st of January 2022 when it's YTD, because that's what we selected there. So there is no 1st of January in A1, and therefore the safer choice here would be the value that is greater than or equals to the earliest date. So we'll put -1 here, so which is this third selection there. Then close the match function for that function there. So if I enter, you can see that scales down, and therefore it means we need to do the same here for this number 6. Of course, you can copy. Let me just do it quickly. Match that within A2 to the last one, then comma -1 to get the greater than value or equals to, and as you can see, it gives us the same output for data points. Now if I make it back to 6M, you can see it adjusts. If it's 3M, then it's 3 months. If it's 1 year, you can see it's 12 data points, but then as you can see, the formatting does not come along, but that's a date as well. So let me restore it back to 6M. For this offset solution we've seen here, the data needs to be sorted by this date column here in column A, especially if you're using Excel 2019 or earlier. But if you're using Excel 2021 or Office 365, then in this case you can be able to use the filter function combined with the sort or sort by function. So let me delete this solution here, which is giving us this period and rate, and let me show you briefly how the filter function would look like, but we are going to stick with the offset. So filter, what do you want to return? We want to return these 2 columns. I press Control Shift arrow down to select everything. Then the include is a condition that you need to apply. In our case, the date column needs to be between the earliest date and the latest date. And in that case, because we are using 2 conditions here, we need to wrap them within parentheses here. So I'll select from A2, Control Shift arrow down again. I'm pressing Control backspace so that it can show at the top. Then I want to say, is that date greater than or equals to the earliest date in G12? Then I close the bracket for that condition. Because we are doing an AND condition, then we have to multiply, then open another bracket, still select from A2, Control Shift arrow down, Control backspace so that it goes to the top, and you compare that to be less than or equals to the latest date in H12. Close this condition, then you can close the bracket for that as well. So when I enter, you see I will get that list there for both columns, because I selected both columns here in my formula as what I want to return in the array. But like I mentioned, if you have Office 2021 and 365, you don't have to have these dates sorted. If they are not sorted, then you have this sort function. So if I edit this one, I can say sort. Then I want to sort, even if I left this one as such, it will still return that, but then it will be reversed in the reverse order. If you want it to be in the correct order from the latest all the way to the earliest, then you can put a comma at the end. You say what's the sort index, which is optional. I will put 1 because I am sorting by the first column. Then the order here is descending. I want the most recent date coming first, so I'll select that, and then I can enter. You can see you get the same output. So you can do that if you're using Excel 2021 or Office 365. So at this juncture, we have achieved the interactivity that we need, because if the data is changing upon the selection of the option button, then we are going to achieve that interactivity that we are looking for. If you like what you're seeing and you're curious on how you can make your charts and data stories to pop out within your reports and dashboards, I have full I have a full extensive course on Excel charts and visualizations, both in Excel and PowerPoint. You can check it here, and I'm going to leave the link in the description below. Let's proceed with this one. We need to plot the chart, so I'll highlight that data set. Go to Insert menu. Then we want to do a line chart. I'll go with the first one here. So this is the chart that we get returned. So I'll make it wider like that. Okay, then let me position it there. In fact, I can just move it up here. Okay, so that's the line chart. But now, as you can see, the line chart, if I change to 3M, then you can see the chart still plots the data points, but then from the selection down here, you can see there are some empty rows, so that doesn't work really well. If I do ITD, it's still within the 6 data points we selected initially, but if I select 1 year, you can see it just plots the first 6 data points. So we need to account for that, and this is where we use dynamic named ranges. To create the dynamic named range that we need for this chart to respond properly and account for these additional rows down here, we need to use this formula in our named range, and this is where you come in if you're using an earlier version of Excel that didn't spill over the numbers. So you need to copy the formula that we have there. But before I copy the formula, allow me to make a few changes and lock these ranges, the cells for the ranges we've selected. So I'll highlight all these and press F4 to lock. So that's the formula we need. I'll do the same with this inflation rate formula. I just lock it as such. Then I can copy the formula here. That locking is important because the name range might get to be relative. So if I come to the formulas tab, I can say define name or click new name manager here. Let me go with define name. Then the name that we shall use here, we shall say XDates. Then refers to down here, we are going to delete what is here. Then say equals and then Control V. So if we say OK, we will not see anything here. But if I go back to the formulas tab and I say name manager and then select that named range, if I click down here on this refers to, you can see the selection that is on column A. The running ants there have selected the 12 months data points because my selection in the option button says 1 year. Now with that in place, we can do the same flow to get the inflation rate numbers as a named range, but we can also offset this formula, the X dates, and I choose to go with that option. So I'll click here new. Then I say I want Y values to be the inflation rates. So I'll just call it F rates. You can call it anything. Then for this formula here, we'll say equals offset. Of course, this you have to type it yourself. Then X dates is the name that we want to offset. So I'll press F3 to get that name. If you know it, you can just type it, comma. Then remember the X date is giving us the 1 year values. So we want to shift that one column to the right, and therefore we are not moving any number of rows. So that's a 0. But in terms of the columns, we want to return 1. So the rest of the parameters here will be optional. So if I say OK, and I click this formula down here, you can see the selection has been done for the 12 data points there. So at this juncture, let me just close that. Then let's make the update on the chart here. So if I scroll to the right here to see the entire chart, I need to right click anywhere on this chart, choose select data. Then we need to update this inflation rate here. Then I will choose edit. The series name will remain the same, but for the series values here, we shall change from this range G17. Then we shall choose, remember these are inflation rates. As you delete this portion, be very careful. Do not delete the sheet name and the exclamation mark. That needs to be retained. Then I'll press F3 and pick Y rates. So it will be reading the sheet name, which is sheet 1, exclamation mark, then the named range. So if I press OK, you can see that still works. For the horizontal axis on the chart, we also need to update this. We edit on the right here. You can see the selection being done on the worksheet because that's what we selected initially. Again, we change this, delete that cell reference and choose X dates this time round. I'm pressing F3 to get the names. Then I say OK. So if I press OK, you can see immediately the chart has responded, and now we have been able to achieve the interactivity that we want. If I change to any other selection here, like 3 years, you can see the chart keeps growing in terms of the data. Let's format this chart. The first thing I want to change here is that this chart, the data at the bottom, I don't want to see the date. I want just the year and the month. So I right click the axis on the chart and I choose format axis. Then I will choose first of all, at the axis points, I want to change this to be on tick mark so that the chart can be plotted, the date can be plotted where exact point. Then I will change instead, let me collapse axis options, open up the number. I will change this format code from DD. I will remove DD and hyphens. Then I will put 3 M's here. Space, it doesn't matter whether it's capital letters or not, so space and then 4 Y's. If I click add, the chart will basically show the year and the month. Okay, it's only that they are slanted, but if I change this to 1 year, it might look easy on the eyes. So the next thing I want to do here, I will change the color of this line chart. I select the line itself, come to this solid line, maybe choose a different color if I so prefer. So it will be black like that, but if you so prefer, you can use a different color altogether. So maybe let me go with that color. Then I also want to remove these grid lines like that. Then the next thing I want to do is to shade the area beneath the line. And in that case, I will just right click this chart, choose select data. I need to add a new series. So I'll add a series here. I'll click add. Then the series name, I'll just call it area or any other name. It's just presenting the area below the chart. Then below here we'll type equals sheet 1 with an exclamation mark because that's how you reference the sheet name. Then I'll press F3 to access the rates. So I'm just duplicating the chart, the line chart per se. So if I say OK, so you can see I can update also on this other side. So this should be sheet 1 exclamation mark X dates. Okay, of course this needs to start with an equal sign and I press OK. So you get the same output just like you had the inflation rate. But now I'm doing this because an area chart is what I'm going for this area beneath the chart. So I'll right click this line and I choose to change series chart type. Then for this area, I will choose this area chart. And as you can see, I'm achieving what I'm looking for. I just press OK. Then I will right click this reddish part. I want to format that data series. Then here, in terms of the line, I will say no line because I don't want a line for that area. But for the fill, I will use the same color with the line chart itself. So I'll use this, but then I'll adjust the transparency maybe to 90%. As you can see, you can play around with this figure here, maybe 80% or 85%. As you can see, you have a lot of choices when it comes to these charts, so you'll achieve something of that sort. So I'm using both a combination of line and area chart because an area chart will come with borders if I have to put that dark upper part of the area chart. So if I put a border, it will be all over the place. Finally, with this chart, we need to position this option button so that they appear at the top right of our chart and be part of the chart. So I'll right click or hold Control to select the first one. Then when it's selected, I can press Control A. That will select all the objects within this file. I will hold Control and deselect the chart. then I can drag these objects here, and as you can notice, these objects appear behind the scene because I added them before the chart. So I need to go to this shape format here, and then I can choose the options here to say bring forward and say bring to front, so that they will appear as such. Then at this juncture I can position them correctly somewhere there. Then I can hold Control and select the chart again, then go back to shape format and then choose group, so that they can be moved as one object as such, so that when I move like this, you can see it moves together. And if I select a given period, then the chart will respond accordingly. So these are final output, which is fully interactive and responds to what selection you've done here. And if you want to learn more about charts, I have several videos like this one here on the channel. Please take time to look at it. If you have an idea of a chart that you'd want to see, please leave a comment and I will see you in the next video.